I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And this week I'm giving you a bonus episode. Just 2 days ago we had a mega episode on all the design categories: production design, costume design, makeup and hairstyling, giving you a deep dive analysis in those categories, because ultimately those are the categories that are going to help you win your Oscar, pull your Oscar predictions to get the most amount of sort of percentage, which is the categories I do very well in every single year. We now have about 5 years of historical accurate Oscar predictions to go back upon, and many of that has to do with the breakdowns, the small minute stuff of these technical awards. So go check out that video if you want sort of a breakdown of those technical awards. But this is a bonus episode because just yesterday we had the Screen Actors Guild Awards release their nominations for 2022, and this told us a lot. So just at the front, I want to say that recently we had the Golden Globes, which have very much no impact on this year. I didn't want to cover that because ultimately this is Old's Oscar Countdown, where we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with the Oscars, and the Globes have a very small effect, largely because there's no overlap between Golden Globes voters and Oscar voters. However, many of the acting members of the Academy are also members of the Screen Actors Guild. So it actually gives us some telling information of what Oscar voters are voting on, particularly in this nominations period, because the actors nominate the actors. Now, with that being said, SAG-AFTRA has been sort of losing its appeal over the years, just because, like I mentioned, they actually have added AFTRA, another organization, on top of the Screen Actors Guilds. So it's actually a much larger organization than the Academy itself. So we get a little bit more of a populist kind of approach, and there's many members, I say most members of the SAG-AFTRA are actually not members of the Academy. So we do have some influence. We also sort of get more a populist general approach to things. However, this does tell us what the actors appreciate, and that ultimately helps us tell in terms of chances of movies, but also, of course, mainly the acting categories. So without further ado, I just want to break down each acting category and then ensemble at the end, giving you my analysis, sort of the ups and downs and who's winning and who's losing, and sort of the race of the Oscars. Starting off with Best Actress, the big one being the Kristen Stewart snub. This was sort of a shock by a lot of people, and I think definitely hurts her chances. This is somebody who we thought could be the potential frontrunner to win for Best Lead Actress, Kristen Stewart, in her role for Spencer. However, the movie has been slipping very much, and it seems like the show is the performance. Now, a lot of people, it's easy to freak out. Oh my God, she was a frontrunner. Now she's not even going to get nominated. I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but in terms of her winning, yes, that's very unlikely for it to happen, because as a matter of fact, if you go back and look at the Best Lead Actress winners at SAG and at Oscars, they don't always overlap, but they're always nominated. As a matter of fact, there has never been a person who was not nominated at SAG that went on to win the Oscar for Best Lead Actress. Technically, there's the situation with Kate Winslet, in which she wasn't nominated for Best Lead Actress at SAG and went on to win Lead Actress at the Oscars, but she was actually nominated for Best Supporting Actress the same year at SAG and won for that. So that doesn't really count, in my opinion. Now, there is a category like the Best Supporting Actress, which has happened 3 times. Regina King for If Beale Street Could Talk. Then you go back to 2001 with Jennifer Connelly, and the year before that, Marsha Gay Harden. These are actors who have not been nominated at SAG and end up winning the Oscars. However, that's the supporting category. That's a little bit more in flux. To me, based on what we've seen from actor and actress, it has never happened in the history of the SAG Awards has an actor not been nominated at SAG and then gone on to win the Oscars. So I still think it's very unlikely that Kristen Stewart wins for Best Lead Actress. Can she win? Yes, but the historical precedent has shown us that actually that's very unlikely for it to happen. And then in terms of the nominations, I still have her in that final slot, but in my opinion, she is very vulnerable because she missed out on this nomination here. She still got on Critics' Choice. Ultimately, we'll have to see what happens at the BAFTA Awards. I know they changed it last year. We'll have to see what they're going to do this year in terms of their adopting the new voting sort of policy and how they sort of decided to do it last year, which gave us pretty much inconclusive results because they had the sort of own jury. However, that being said, if we do see a Kristen Stewart show up at the BAFTA, I'd feel a little bit more confident putting her in this 5th slot. But also in part, I think this 5th slot is still up in the air because we don't have, in my opinion, a clear frontrunner. In this case, the sort of top 4 are very clear. It's going to be Lady Gaga, Nicole Kidman, Olivia Colman, and Jessica Chastain. They've gone in pretty much everywhere, Critics' Choice, SAG, and their movies also have been doing sort of relatively well in terms of nominations and getting in where they need to get in. So for me, it's that sort of fifth slot. Well, what's that fifth slot going to be? Jennifer Hudson got nominated here at SAG, but in my opinion, that seems like a classic sort of SAG pick. She's playing a real-life person, which we know the biopics, the actors really appreciate that approach. Respect has been a movie that's been out for a long time and is on sort of streaming services. So because SAG, not all the members actually get screeners. They sort of tend to prefer these streaming movies. So we see movies like Don't Look Up do very well, and The Tender Bar get a surprise nomination because these movies are streaming and widely available for many of the members. So Jennifer Hudson sort of sings and plays a real life person, but the movie, in a sense, I don't think will get any other nominations. Spencer is a movie that's gotten much more nominations, and I think this has more to do with the fact that there's a sort of singing element, which I think the actors really appreciate, and because this movie has just been more seen than even a movie like Spencer or West Side Story, where they sort of had a limited theatrical release and then haven't really been available on a Netflix or something like that. It could also go to somebody like an Alana Haim or Rachel Zegler. Both those movies have done pretty well in terms of nominations, potential kind of front-runner pictures in Licorice Pizza and West Side Story, and they're both very much the ingenue, sort of up-and-comer, never been nominated before, fresh face. But Kristen Stewart kind of also falls into that slot. She's also had a lot more sort of more serious roles versus Rachel Zegler and Alana Haim. They're both their very first film roles, so I'm not sure if either one gets in. Maybe they split each other out and it still goes to Kristen Stewart, because ultimately this is an Oscar role, playing a famous person. Ultimately, we thought that Kristen Stewart could potentially win, so maybe her team starts to double down to at least get her the nomination. It's hard to say right now, but that fifth slot is definitely up in the air, and I wouldn't begrudge you if you went with sort of a newcomer like a Rachel Zegler or Alana Haim, which I could definitely see. Hard to tell though right now, and this Kristen Stewart snub was massive and definitely hurts her chances of getting a nomination, but definitely hurts her chances in terms of winning. Then jumping over into the Best Lead Actor category, not a huge surprise here, except for the Javier Bardem nomination, but that wasn't super surprising to me. The big thing that I sort of took away from this category is actually the support from Will Smith. Now that may be an odd thing. You say, well, it didn't get in for Ingenue Ellis, yes, but the truth is that this movie got in for Will Smith and it got in for Best Ensemble, which shows to me that there's a larger sign of support for this movie. And that Will Smith, we were sort of concerned, did he peak too early? Is this really going to happen? They sort of anoint people early on. Will that actually happen? It didn't happen for Kristen Stewart, but I don't think it's going to happen for Will Smith, because his movie, I expect to get nominated for Best Picture. I expect to get nominated for writing, which, Spencer wasn't going to get those nominations. It was very vulnerable. So Kristen Stewart was going up against the fact that many people didn't even like her movie. King Richard, we know a lot of people liked the movie. Got in for Ensemble, has that acting support, has that sort of above the line, crowd-pleasing populist element. And if you like the movie, King Richard, it's about Will Smith playing Richard Williams, so he is sort of the central character of the movie. So I think if you like the movie, you in part like his performance at the very least. So he's still my front runner. And then along with Denzel Washington and Andrew Garfield and Benedict Cumberbatch, I feel confident in those four. Could I see maybe a Denzel Washington miss because of the strength of the movie? Yes, maybe, but those guys, similar to the acting sort of actor, lead actress sort of category, those four have sort of been showing up everywhere. I think it's going to be Smith, Cumberbatch, Denzel Washington, and then Garfield. The real question is now this fifth slot, like in the actress category. Once again, they went with, in my opinion, a sort of SAG pick. And I just say the SAG pick because we've seen this time and time again. Movies like The Butler or A Quiet Place, these more populist, generally crowd-pleasing, popular movies get nominated versus, movies that are a little bit more prestigious and sophisticated, which is more so the Academy's taste versus something like SAG. That's just in terms of the type of movies that they like. We've seen that time and time again, and that's what you get, the sort of intangibles when we're comparing the two awards. And this seems like a classic SAG pick. Being Ricardo's was on Prime, so it was easily accessible to a lot of people. Of course, Javier Bardem was playing a real-life person, and not only a real-life person, a real-life actor, Desi Arnaz. I think so the actors sort of appreciated that, playing another actor. The movie's about show business, so it sort of appeals to their taste there. Even so, I would say that even the script by Aaron Sorkin, many actors appreciate the sort of amount of dialogue that you have to learn and the degree of difficulty, in the same way they understand the degree of difficulty for singing for Jennifer Hudson. They understand the degree of difficulty of being in an Aaron Sorkin movie. So Javier Bardem playing an actor with an extra sort of added extra bit of degree. I think this is still a possibility. I mean, being on the Ricardos, could get in for Nicole Kidman, I think, pretty easily. I think he's going to get in for screenplay pretty easily. Could it get in for here? Yes. And then it gets in for picture? Yes, sure, that could all make sense. But then there's also some concerns where, why isn't Being the Ricardos getting nominated for Best Makeup? Why wouldn't in terms of the shortlist. Why didn't Being the Ricardos get a shortlist for a best makeup and hairstyling or costume design? Certain things like that, it's a little bit concerning. Now, it still has some of that guild support, so maybe it just has this general SAG support. But to me, this fifth slot, the Javier Bardem pick, feels a little bit SAG-esque. I'm not totally bought in that he's going to get that nomination. So then you go, okay, what's next? Maybe it's Peter Dinklage for Cyrano. I could definitely see that happening. Him getting that BAFTA because it's a theater-based performance, so they sort of appreciate that a little bit more. He gets that BAFTA boost and then gets into the Oscars. I'm still not counting out Leonardo DiCaprio from Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up got the Best Ensemble nod here, so there's still acting support for the movie. And also, this is Leonardo DiCaprio. This is six-time nominee, Oscar winner Leonardo DiCaprio, who has been nominated just 2 years ago, and then 4 years before that. He's a very well-respected actor at the lead of this movie that we expect, including me, to get nominated for Best Picture. And plus, Adam McKay's movies, his past two movies that were nominated for Best Picture, he had at least one acting nomination. So with this fifth slot up for grabs, who am I going to go for? Am I going to go for first-time nominee Peter Dinklage or Javier Bardem in a movie that, you know, is a little bit more controversial, critically panned? Or am I going to go with a movie that I'm much more confident will get in for Best Picture, Don't Look Up, and that lead actor being Oscar favorite Leonardo DiCaprio? Then going over to Best Supporting Actor, the big sort of two misses here being Jamie Dornan and Ciarán Hinds from Belfast, both missing out. We weren't sure which one was going to be early on, and then it seemed like both of them were getting nominated at Critics' Choice, for example, and then all of a sudden, they sort of maybe canceled each other out here. It's very difficult to sort of see and understand where this is going to be, but this is definitely, in my opinion, a hurt to Belfast's chances in terms of Best Picture. Because there's sort of a divide here, there's a chance that neither of these men could get nominated. I mean, there was some sort of thought that maybe someone like a Ciarán Hinds could even win for this category. Oftentimes we see these sort of two-time nominees in the same category, one of them wins. Like Sam Rockwell will also get nominated with Woody Harrelson, but Sam Rockwell will win the Oscar. You know, so Belfast in general, you know, I look at its Oscar chances, and it does seem like the type of movie that would win. But if it misses out here, and then only gets Katrina Balfe, that kind of hurts it. And then screenplay, maybe it loses out to Licorice Pizza. So then it's like, well, where's the Oscars going to come from? It seems like the movie the Oscars will like. You know, it did get nominated for Best Acting Ensemble, so it does have the acting support along with Katrina Balfe. This, I think, is a definite chance, more than anything, hurts Belfast's opportunities. And also, I'm kind of confused right now because, well, Ciarán Hinds, I think, has the more traditional Oscar role in terms of the supporting role and the wise figure. But Jamie Dornan has been doing a lot of campaigns, so maybe they're canceling out, maybe they both get in. Right now it's kind of confusing, but this is a big knock, I think, to Belfast's Best Picture chances, but also to these two men getting in this category. Regardless, it seems that Jared Leto, Troy Kotsur, and Cody Smith-McPhee are the sort of three main locks. I think Cody Smith-McPhee sort of solidified himself as the frontrunner to win this category, which once again not only hurts Belfast, but helps a movie like The Power of the Dog, because if you can get in for screenplay win and Cody Smith-McPhee win, and then director win, why not Best Picture? So there's a clear path for there in terms of The Power of the Dog. Troy Kotsur seems to be the frontrunner from Coda, so he seems to be a lot, plus the movie seems to be resonating, which I expected. Jared Leto, you know, this seems like to be a SAG kind of performance, but also an Oscar performance, playing a real-life person. We expect the sort of makeup link, which I talked about on Tuesday's video, and he's very much, you know, over the top, but it clearly has resonated with SAG voters, which is, you know, a large group. The actors are the largest group of the Academy. So if The House of Gucci is a movie that's resonating with the Academy, I think Jared Leto gets in. So those three, Jared Leto, Troy Kotsur, and Cody McPhee are sort of the top three. Then you go, okay, what's those final two slots? Maybe it's the Belfast guys, but they missed out on SAG. So we have to sort of understand, well, who gets the bump, who doesn't? And this is where the analysis sort of comes in. We have the two nominees that happened here, along with the sort of top three, being Ben Affleck for The Tender Bar and Bradley Cooper for Licorice Pizza. Now, I think Bradley Cooper for Licorice Pizza is the much higher likelihood of getting nominated. Let's not forget, Bradley Cooper is an 8-time nominee, very well appreciated within the Academy. With his most recent effort, A Star is Born, I think he garnered a lot of respect within the Academy, working this year as well with Guillermo del Toro, and then in this case, Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson. Now, he's very much not a main player in this movie. He's a supporting actor who's in the movie for maybe 15 minutes, but those 15 minutes are great. They're universally loved. So right now I actually have Bradley Cooper in my fourth slot because I expect Licorice Pizza to do well. I actually expect it to overperform at the Oscars like many of the Paul Thomas Anderson's movies do. And if we expect Paul Thomas Anderson to maybe win for for screenplay, to get in for director. Oh, do we think it's going to get no other acting nominations? Maybe it gets a lot of high, but actually, with this SAG nomination, it gives me more confidence to go with a guy like Bradley Cooper for Licorice Pizza. Because if we think they like Licorice Pizza, well, as a person who's seen the movie, he's almost the most universally loved, beloved. Of course, he's playing John Peters, a real-life person. He is very much over the top in that movie, but he's got this sort of dual combination of Nightmare Alley, people liking that movie enough, and his performance in that, and Licorice Pizza here, so sort of want to nominate him for both roles, so it looks like maybe they'll go with Licorice Pizza. That makes sense for that 4th slot. The 5th slot, I don't think it's going to go to Ben Affleck for The Tender Bar. Like I mentioned, The Tender Bar is on streaming now, so it has that sort of a streaming boost, which has helped SAG voting. Also, Ben Affleck is a person who hasn't been well received by the Academy. I mean, this is a guy whose movie won Best Picture, yet he didn't get nominated for Best Director or Best Lead Actor. He directed a movie in which he's the star of the movie. It won Best Picture, yet he didn't get nominated for either directing or lead. That's fishy to me. I don't think they sort of love Ben Affleck, even though he's technically won 2 Oscars. I'm not sure they love him as an actor. Tender Bar is sort of critically panned. I don't expect it to get any other nominations. Even a movie like The Midnight Sky, George Clooney's last movie, didn't do so well in terms of nominations last year. So for those reasons, even though maybe he should get a nomination, I think he's still kind of on the outside. And then you have to sort of question, what's that last slot? I think it's probably going to be one of the Belfast boys. Probably Kieran Hines, just because I think that's a little bit more of the traditional role, but Jamie Dornan is campaigning a lot, and I think they definitely canceled each other out here at SAG, which is concerning, and like I said, hurts Belfast's Best Picture chances, so maybe we see a surprise of Mike Feist or something like that, J.K. Simmons, maybe even in that final slot. But let's not forget that I think Belfast is definitely not totally a SAG movie, but it will definitely be a BAFTA movie. I think it will definitely resonate. You know, let's not forget, just because of one SAG thing, it stops the hitch. You know, we got the 2 Belfast guys getting nominated for Critics' Choice Awards. They could get nominated at BAFTA. You know, it's very much that sort of British kind of a movie. So I expect it to do very well there, and then maybe I'll end up predicting both of them anyways. Then quickly, just breaking down Best Supporting Actress, the least crazy of the bunch, but still sort of unpredictable. I think Kirsten Dunst and Katrina Balfe and Ariana Boise are the sort of top 3. You know, there's been some concerns and articles written about how West Side Story didn't send enough screeners to the SAG Guild, so there's, you know, concern that not enough people have seen it, which is why I didn't get in for Ensemble or even like a Mike Feist or a Rita Moreno. But that being said, there's still a subsection of SAG that did watch the movie and liked it almost universally. They gave Ariana Boise a nomination. So the fact that, you know, there was a problem with screeners, not enough people of the sort of larger SAG-AFTRA saw it, but that even still, Ariana Boise got nominated for Supporting Actress, I actually think is very telling for this movie. You know, we think that Kristen Stewart was supposed to be the ingenue, the sort of up-and-coming new actors that wins, like they like to do in these acting categories, particularly the female acting categories. But maybe this year, it's going to be in supporting. Maybe this year, it's actually going to be Ariana Boise, and maybe that's West Side Story's Best Picture chances. Hard to tell. Kirsten Dunst, though, is still in the race. And Katrina Balfe, if we really believe in this sort of Belfast buzz, could be that movie's sort of path, too. So this race, in terms of a winner, is still up in the air, but I do feel confident in those 3 in terms of getting a nomination. Then in the other slots, we'll have to see. But Ruth Negga getting a nomination here for Passing, I do think is telling. You know, this was a movie where it's a very complex role. She's very much a co-lead of the movie, and we always like to see these sort of co-leads get nominated and supporting, because when we think of the movie, we think of them. So that always helps. In that case, someone like Katrina Balfe is in much of Belfast, so we think about her when we think of Belfast. Similarly here, when we think of Passing, we think of Ruth Negga. But the real question was, is this movie too artsy? Will enough people see it? It had been sort of underperforming. But that being said, Ruth Negga has been picking up a lot of critics awards. It gets the SAG nomination here, which shows me enough people have been seeing the movie. It does seem sort of prestigious enough to sort of, because of the black and white and the content, to ultimately get the Academy appeal. So ultimately, I see the SAG nomination, that benefits me. I'm seeing Ruth Negga getting a lot of critics' choices and critics awards. That pleases me. And just the fact that enough people have been seeing it, it does make sense. So we got the co-lead aspect, the people that are seeing it, the SAG, and I think and the critics awards. And even if she doesn't get in for BAFTA, I think she still has a chance to get nominated here for Best Supporting Actress. Let's not forget, she was nominated over Amy Adams in 2016 for Arrival, when Ruth Negga got nominated for Loving, so there is sort of still an appreciation of past nominee. A lot of things going for Ruth Negga, which is why I have her in the 4th slot. The 5th slot right now, the big set kind of snub would be Ingenue Ellis for King Richard, but like I said, Will Smith got nominated and the movie got nominated for Best Ensemble. This does seem like a sort of two-scene performance kind of a situation that will appeal to the Oscars, and because I expect the movie to do very well, I actually have Ingenue Ellis in this 5th slot. SAG went with Cate Blanchett here, who we haven't really seen in any Critics' Awards or Critics' Choice. It does seem, like I said, like in the other categories, this one seemed like a SAG performance, playing very much the femme fatale of noir. And Cate Blanchett is a very well-respected actor, but she's been won before and twice, and she's been nominated many times at the Oscars. So you may say, hey, they're going to nominate her because of that. In my opinion, because there's not a lot of buzz around Nightmare Alley, but there is a little bit more support for something like King Richard. I think Ingenue Ellis sort of edges her out because Kate's got sort of enough praise. Let's reward someone who hasn't had the same amount of praise, in this case Ingenue Ellis, for a movie, King Richard, which I think the Academy will like more than Nightmare Alley. So that's my sort of 5th slot there. Then jumping into Best Ensemble, a couple things I want to mention is actually not to freak out about a couple things. This is a category that was very indicative for a long time, from about 2016 back to 1995, about this sort of 20-year period. If you didn't get an acting ensemble nomination at SAG, you were not winning Best Picture. It didn't happen. Even something like La La Land, didn't win Best Picture, didn't get nominated for Best Acting Ensemble. That was a huge sort of blow to its chances, and ultimately sort of foretold what would happen on that fateful Oscar night. But then what happened? 2017, Shape of Water didn't get an ensemble nomination at SAG, went to win Best Picture. The next year, Green Book didn't get an ensemble nomination, won Best Picture. 2019, Parasite won for ensemble, but then the year after that, 2020, Nomadland, no nomination for Best Acting Ensemble, wins Best Picture. So it seems to be a real clear divide in these past, 3 of the last 4 years. It doesn't really matter. As a matter of fact, it may help if you don't get a nomination. Ultimately, how I read this category is, do you have acting support? So for example, The Shape of Water had acting support. Michael Stuhlbarg, Michael Shannon, Octavia Spencer, Sally Hawkins. There's a huge amount of acting support, even though it technically didn't get an ensemble nomination. So I look at a movie like The Power of the Dog. That got 3 nominations. So despite it not getting in for ensemble, what does it tell us? It still tells us that this movie has a lot of acting support because it has 3 nominations. Then I look at, a movie like Belfast. What does that tell us? Even though it's sort of disappointed with the 2 actors, it still got in here. It still got in for Katrina Belf. That tells me there's still acting support. So that makes sense. Coda is another movie that seems like a classic acting ensemble nomination. I was confident it was going to get in because of so many of the, deaf actresses and actors who we actually don't see too often in movies. Marlee Matlin, Troy Kotsur, sort of showing off and being so impressive, so they wanted to nominate that in the same way they wanted to nominate a movie like Minari. Then we have Don't Look Up, which actually makes sense to me. Star-studded all-star cast. It's sort of unsure why that got nominated here, but then got no sort of acting nominees. But that, like I said before, that's why I'm actually kind of confident Leonardo DiCaprio may get it in for that 5th slot, because it still shows us that, hey, there's acting support for Don't Look Up. So Coda makes sense, Belfast makes sense, Don't Look Up makes sense. Then sort of last 2 slots, the big kind of surprise was House of Gucci. That could have gone to West Side Story or Licorice Pizza. King Richard got the other slot, which does make sense. It is a sort of great ensemble. We have the Will Smith. I do think Ingenue Ellis is going to get nominated. There's sort of 2 younger sisters and kids, and that's sort of a great ensemble movie. But that final slot was House of Gucci, which was a big surprise. And in my opinion, actually sort of puts it into that 10th slot for Best Picture. We're always confused, what's it going to get in? But House of Gucci was a very sort of populist movie. It does seem to be resonating, especially with a big group like SAG. This is a movie that could definitely get in for Producers Guild, because it's one of those sort of few domestic kind of dramas that did very well at the box office, which I think the producers will appreciate. So I don't be surprised if you see it at the Producers Guild. So right now I have it in that 10th slot for getting in for Best Picture, because I see a clear acting for Gaga, a clear acting for Jared Leto. I think it could get in for something like costumes, could even get in for screenplay. But if it has below the line costumes, 2 acting awards, populist, gets in for SAG ensemble, a lot of those things help and actually put it in right now. That sort of, we thought it was going to be at what point, this big Oscar contender. It fell off. Maybe now sort of sneaks in at the very end. It did very well at the Makeup and Hairstyling Guild. It did very well here. So we have to sort of read the room and read the guilds and what they like appreciate, and they're sort of resonating right now with House of Gucci. So maybe it could have gone to West Side Story, but like I said, there was a screener issue. Licorice Pizza, I think, took a little bit of a notch down because it didn't get it for Lana Hyam and didn't get it in for Best Ensemble here. And you can even say something like Being the Ricardos, but it got Javier Bardem and Nicole Kidman, so we know there's acting support there. So what do you want to take away is, in this category, don't over freak out. There's hits to a movie like Licorice Pizza, but don't over freak out for The Power of the Dog, and maybe it gave an extra little boost to a movie like House of Gucci or Belfast, I think helped in this category. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the SAG Award nominations and your thoughts on my analysis. What you think I got wrong or right. What do you think the SAG Awards mean, ultimately? And every week on Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to break down an extra different category. Plus, I also like to do reactions and nominations. We're going to get PGA, WGA, and DGA. Sort of, I'll probably do in one video because we're getting them all at the same time. Although WGA is not too indicative this year, so we'll have to see and play it by ear. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, stay tuned.